the reason you procrastinate studying and your problem, okay, distractions aside, you still find yourself procrastinate studying. Like, you have TikTok deleted, you have Snapchat deleted, you have Instagram deleted. I even had LinkedIn and Spotify deleted at one point, and I would still procrastinate studying. So even if you have your phone powered off and all your distractions are put to one side and you still can't sit down and study and you're procrastinating, I'm going to tell you what I think your problem may or may not be. When I say procrastinate studying, what do I mean? I basically mean, let's say you have 3 months to study for an exam. Okay, procrastination ultimately is when you keep delaying doing something. I would keep delaying my studies. If I had 3 months for an exam, that's plenty of time for me to learn the content, memorize the content even, do past paper questions, and ultimately get a good grade. But I would keep delaying my studies. I would keep postponing this. I'd be like, oh, it's fine, I have more time. When in reality, I could have gotten a much better grade if I would just quit procrastinating. And why I think procrastination sometimes works, and you have to like get this mindset out of your head. So I could have like work due, like an essay due the next day, and I could literally procrastinate till like the night before the morning of, and I could still write up the entire thing so fast and get a good grade. However, procrastination is not going to work in the long run, and it's never going to work for technical skills or technical subjects. Like math, for example, math is a language that can only be learned through practice. And you're not going to have the time to practice and learn this language if you keep procrastinating. And that's my biggest issue, is that procrastination is going to impact your studies because you're not going to have time to get stuff done because you keep delaying it. Okay, I'm turning into a yappuccino, so I'm just going to move on. Your issue is anxiety. Apparently it is anxiety. What do I mean by anxiety? Because I did not believe this. Like, I came across this video by Inner Iman 3 months ago, and there's this character. And this character tries to sit down and study so he can get into his dream university, and he couldn't study. Instead, he would get distracted. He'd scroll on TikTok, he'd watch movies on Netflix, he'd play video games with his friends. He would basically do anything and everything but studying, because every time he would open a textbook, he would just get so overwhelmed with all the material that he would have to close it and he'd have to like do something else. So he was procrastinating, and it says that his issue with procrastination was because of his anxiety. And this was such an eye-opener because I realized, oh my god, I relate so much to this character. My issue is anxiety. Now here's my mistake. My biggest mistake watching this video wasn't the fact that I watched it once and I realized that like my issue was anxiety. My biggest mistake was that I would watch this video repeatedly and I would use it as my source of motivation. I would watch this video every day. Like, I would like sit down at my desk, and before I study, I'd watch this video for motivation. And through social learning theory, which is basically when you pay attention to something, you retain what it is, you're motivated, you reproduce it. This character did not get into his dream university. Instead, he ended up going to some lower tier university even after he realized anxiety was his problem. And that really impacted me because I started internalizing it. I was like, we're the same. We have so much in common. We're basically the same. He's in the same boat as me. He couldn't get into his dream university. I'm not going to get into my dream university. I should just give up. Why should I study? I would get so overwhelmed, and I would internalize the fact that if this character couldn't do it, what could I do? I couldn't do it either. And because I was internalizing videos like this alongside Pinterest and like toxic motivation. And so, you know, these pins you come across of like, you're wasting time, you don't have, while others are building features you won't have. Okay, and then I'd also like save more toxic pins as well. Like, if you don't sit down and study today, you're guaranteed to fail your exam. And guess what? I could not sit down and study that day because I would keep on procrastinating. Then the next day, instead of getting up and starting fresh, I'd be like, oh, but I remember I saved myself a pin, and it was like, if you don't study today, you're gonna fail. I'm gonna fail. What's the point? I had so much self-doubt, and it was social learning theory. Like, it was the media, and it was like everything on social media that I was internalizing negatively, and I used it as a form of self-doubt, and that was getting in the way. However, anxiety can easily be solved, and I can go through how to do that, but I'm going to tell you what my other problem was as well, and why I would procrastinate. And it was because I would go into la la land, maladaptive daydreaming. And what is maladaptive daydreaming? It's a mental health issue that causes a person to lose themselves in complex daydreams. However, I don't think maladaptive daydreaming is an issue at the end of the day, because I learned how to manipulate it into my favor. I learned how to use maladaptive daydreaming and make it one of my strengths, and I could go into another video explaining that. but I'm gonna go on to like how to stop maladaptive daydreaming from interfering with your studying. My biggest advice: stop listening to music, even if it's classical music. I know what we say, classical music helps you like focus, especially if you like listen to like Dark Academia or beats. But here's the thing with music: music evokes emotions. If I were to study with music like Gracie Abrams and it's like her sad songs, I would feel sad. And then I would incorporate these sad thoughts into my maladaptive daydreams because I would want to do that. I'd be like, oh, I can add this on into my maladaptive daydreaming. And then I'd end up in La La Land and no work would get done. Same with like really upbeat music as well. And music evokes emotions. And if you want to stop maladaptive daydreaming from interfering with your studies, cut out all music when you study. Just trust me on this, please. And don't make the same mistakes I made. So I realized that I was procrastinating and that I couldn't sit down and get the work done. So my biggest mistake during exam season was like, okay, I'm gonna do 75 hard. And this was last year. And I was like, I'm gonna work out twice a day. Once outside, I'm gonna have a strict diet, no cheat codes, 1 gallon of water a day, 10 pages, no audiobooks. And if I make any mistakes, I'll restart. And what I also did was that I incorporated studying into this as well. I added studying as an extra thing for me to do. Here's the issue. I got a day was so hard for someone like me who barely drinks water, and 10 pages, if I read a book, I can go into La La Land from reading a book. I can start maladaptively daydreaming from reading a book, and 10 pages, like if I'm invested in the book, I would continue to read. And exercise, and when I add like exercising and studying as a thing, I started procrastinating. I would do everything else and I would postpone studying to the last thing, and then I get so burnt out I couldn't even study. So don't overbear yourselves when you realize that you have the problem of procrastination and you realize that like procrastination is the reason you can't study. Don't overbear yourselves with too many things at once. 75 hard is perfect for you to do in the summertime when you don't have your future on the line. Okay. This mindset: hot girls prioritize sleep and they're in bed by 9:30 at the latest and they don't go on their phone first thing in the morning. If I would procrastinate the entire day and then it's like late at night, I'd be like, okay, instead of using that time to be like, I could quickly get some work done, maybe like extra 20 minutes, get some work done, be productive, I had the mindset that I need to prioritize my sleep. I need to go to sleep, you know? Because I was like, it's beauty and brains. If obviously the brains bit isn't working for me, why don't I work on the beauty? Why don't I get my beauty sleep? You have to get rid of this mindset. This mindset was so bad. Anyways, the reason you procrastinate studying, even without distractions, is due to anxiety, and it's due to issues like maladaptive daydreaming that is linked, and that becomes more of an issue the more freaked out you are. And I'm gonna tell you how to fix this problem. You need discipline. Okay, you need discipline. You can't be like me. You can't be relying on Pinterest and YouTube videos to give you motivation, because that's going to lead to its own issues in itself. You need discipline, and the one way I became the most disciplined was that I would focus on praying. Okay, I would try and pray all 5 times a day, and over time that increased my discipline. And because when it comes to praying, you have a set time slot in which you need to get your prayer done. And you can't procrastinate it and be like, okay, I'll do all 5 prayers at the end of the day. You can't do that. You have to do it during its like time period. But I understand many people are not Muslim, and here's what my advice for you to do. If you need to build your discipline to stop procrastinating, search up the times that Muslims pray. Okay, search up the prayer times, and within that same time period, what you're gonna do is that you're gonna sit down, you're gonna count all the way up to 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 50, and you're going to count backwards back down to 1, 50, 49, 48, back down to 1. And you're going to think, why the hell would I do that? Why would I sit down 5 times a day within this fixed time period or this time interval? Why would I count up to 50 and back down to 50? It will improve your discipline so much. Trust me on this. And the more your discipline is improved, the less you're going to procrastinate, and that's going to help you study more. I went from a U in A-level math to a B, and procrastination was one of the things that I had to overcome, and discipline